What's up, Colin? We are back. How are you doing?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Well, I'm a little rough if I'm being honest with you.
What's going on?
Um, I'm just getting over the COVID one more time.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, I felt shitty all last weekend, and here we are. So I I took a test yesterday, and it turns out I have the vid one more time.
All right.
And then I find out that a whole bunch of people that I was at a social with also have the vid this
Oh,
week.
good. Good.
So,
Let's get it out of the way before the winter.
we know what the good part is. They say, they say that you're having increased immunity for 6 months after having it.
There you go.
So, I'm banking on 6 months of uninterrupted training and getting ready because I've got lots of plans this winter for competition.
Okay, good.
And I did have a match booked a week from now. So, this was supposed to be my last week of hard training.
Mm.
So um, that match is in jeopardy. We'll see.
Okay. As far as the match happening, or as far as
As it
your
as it
training?
happening, because I
Oh,
won't go
okay.
in compromised. I've made
Gotcha.
that mistake 3 times in the past 2 years.
I saw the last one.
Um, Two of those times I injured myself terribly, and one was actually I flew to Texas the day after having tested negative for COVID, and I had no energy and no strength, and I ended up getting destroyed by a guy at the time that I should have done at least much better with.
I remember watching that.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh, good.
it's a tough decision, but it's also one that, what do they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. What
Yep.
happens if it's third and fourth time?
Well, then you're probably an idiot.
So let's cap it at three. Let's cap it at three. I'll see if by some miracle I wake up tomorrow and I feel amazing. We'll see. But
We'll see.
yeah, it's in jeopardy.
Well,
Yep. We're not here to talk about arm wrestling. Or
me
are
and all the viewers wish you all the viewer all the
all
viewers
the all the many viewers?
we we wish you a speedy recovery.
I appreciate that very much. So, where do you want to start with? Let's
Well,
take it away. Take it away, Colin. You had something there.
yeah, let's talk about a social media post from earlier this week. I don't remember the exact wording, but
It was something to the effect of who is the most honest realtor in Portage la Prairie.
yes.
That was the gist of it.
Yep, put out on Portage Queries, which is a public Facebook page that people of the Portage and surrounding area can go on and ask questions to other people. So I thought it was a good question, and the reason I wanted to talk about it today because I saw you had made somewhat of a follow-up video to it, and I just wanted to get your thoughts. Maybe you could elaborate a little more on what you said in your video.
Yes, because it was a short, so you are limited to 60 seconds.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. My question back to the person, first of all, I said I'm glad, because it is with that page, that particular Facebook group. It's not uncommon for someone to say who's the best realtor in town, who would you recommend, and then you have a whole list of people that get recommended.
Right.
This was very much the same. Now, a few things to take away from that. One of them is it's awesome that so many people have a positive experience with whoever they're working with. That's great. I love that. The other thing is, though, my question would be, how do you quantify that?
Right. Especially when you're talking about honesty.
And if you're talking about who is honest, well, you can make a case that we all have integrity and we follow our code of conduct and we're honest with our clients and we protect our clients' best interests. But if you've never driven a Dodge and you've only driven a Ford, how do you know that Ford is the best?
Ooh, good analogy.
Well, I mean, it's an easy one because real estate almost follows the same model. So if your dad has used this realtor, your uncle has used this realtor, you have used this realtor, you'll recommend this realtor to your kid. If if your dad drove a Ford and your grandpa drove a Ford, then you're probably going to drive a Ford.
Right.
But maybe you prefer something else and you don't know unless you try. And I'm not suggesting that if you're happy with somebody, you should definitely stay with them. But how do you place one above the other with zero experience or measurables? Now, I understand the flip side of that, where maybe they do have some measurables that definitely would drop somebody down,
Right.
or allow you to put somebody higher.
Right. No, I agree. And the one thing in particular about that post that stood out to me, and thank you to everyone for all the real shout outs on there. People who gave me a shout out, as a new guy, that definitely means a lot to me. It helps grow my business. And, but the thing that stood out the most to me was, other than, one idiot on there, the comments were all positive.
Yeah, there was one guy that was an anonymous poster that did a bit of an
Right.
attack on somebody, and not appropriate because it was clearly a troll job. But
Right.
yeah, but other than that, they were all fairly positive.
Yeah, exactly. And this can go, I mean, in any type of sales, right? If you've had a good experience with somebody, you automatically default them to being honest, knowledgeable, good at their job, and that's great. However, there might be someone else out there that can service you just as well, if not better. And you're right, you can't quantify it until you can't talk about how great A is unless you've tried B or C as well.
Well, yeah, and so the person asking that question, I don't know if they moved towards a resolution to their question,
Right.
to be honest. So they would have simply had, other than that one person, that one negative person, they would have had this list of realtors, and it's quite a lengthy one to pick from.
Right.
So do they just go off of who had more shout outs, or, that's the thing, right? So I'm not sure how that person resolves their issue, if I'm being completely honest. So they just have a list and they seem like all good choices. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily, that criteria of being the most honest. Maybe it's the person you click with the most, because sometimes you just find that person that you really work well with. And other times you find the person that maybe they're not for you, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that person that's not for you could be a very honest person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're just not your style.
They could be amazing at their job. Like I worked with, previous to being in the business myself, I worked with I have experience, I'll say, with 4 different realtors. Okay. Now, one of them was when I was a kid, and that particular gentleman was very, very nice to my mother. He took care of her when the pipe burst before she moved in. And, he said, normally I'd buy you a house plant for a housewarming gift, but I'm going to pay to get this fixed. So that's the kind of thing you remember, right? So I'm not sure why it wasn't covered. I was a kid at the time. We moved into this house. It's on the heels of a separation and all that stuff. But I remember him, and that was Danny Maxwell, and he's no longer in the business, but he's still around town. I see him walking all the time.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that I sit and listen to whenever he talks, because he always has wisdom to share with the people that want to absorb it.
Right.
Right. So you remember stuff like that. And if he was still in the business, it would be very, very difficult for anyone to say, he's not the guy. And then you move on. And I've had experience with 3 other ones since then. Well, I'll even say 4. Because before I was in the business, my brother-in-law was represented by somebody in town, and I watched that process unfold. And I can't say that any are any better or worse than the other. Other than they had one that would always be late. I hated that. But other than that, I can't say they were dishonest or they didn't do a good job.
Right.
Yeah. But
No,
I would
true.
say do your research. Like find those 4 or 5 things that you find that are really important to you and then look for those. So if you want your sign in your yard and you be put on the MLS, well, we all do that.
Right.
What else is important to you? And then go search that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and actually, the person who made the post, I was on the phone with her today in a much different capacity, and I was just kind of curious. I wanted to ask her, so did you make a decision? But it wasn't the platform to have that conversation with her, so I didn't bring it up. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, when I called her workplace for something unrelated, she was the one who answered the phone. Right away, my ears perked up, but I just left it alone.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the other things is like you have a good experience with somebody in a different capacity, maybe they choose you for business as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I met, a good example of this. I met with some potential clients at a listing appointment on Friday of last week. And this area is a little more remote. So, I mean, you could really draw your realtor from a number of places. And their house was currently listed. And I went and met with them because their listing had expired last week before I met with them. And I was just chatting with them and explaining what our process is as realtors, and then what my process is as my own individual realtor. And they were pretty surprised to hear some of the things I had to say, like, "Oh, how come you do that and nobody else does?" And they say nobody else, meaning the last
who they've
realtor,
seen, in the past,
right? And they say, well, maybe we would have had a lot more success had this realtor done this, And I just said, that's why I wanted to meet with you, rather than just talk to you on the phone and send you papers to sign. I would like to sell myself to you, prior to this listing happening. And I guess what I've done to date with them has been very favorable, because I just got a call from one of their friends last night as I'm laying in bed saying, "Hey, I got your name from, person X. Would you be able to help me and my husband buy a house?"
That's how it's done.
So I made an impact in a 1-hour meeting, right?
We're in a referral-based business. So
yeah,
treating people well and making them feel good and doing a good job for them always will pay dividends in referrals.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I see a lot of that. I had listed property in Langruth, and it wasn't even on the market 24 hours, and it sold.
Saw that.
Sight unseen. Like the guy wrote an offer with his realtor in Winnipeg for a property way out on the other side of Lake Manitoba, and they got it. But my sellers are so happy. I got them exactly what they wanted in the end of it all. And it took them 24 hours. And I had honestly expected it to be listed for 6 months.
Right.
And
vacant land. Sometimes they're a little hard to move, right?
Yeah, it's pasture. Like there's pasture land. It's not farmland.
Yeah.
But they are so happy, and they will tell their friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So to sum that up, if you've only ever driven a Dodge, You have no idea what a Fiat can do.
A Fiat? My goodness. Hard pass.
Yeah. I don't even think you'd fit in a Fiat.
That's a very discriminatory thing of you to say.
Because of your height.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Good
What else
conversation.
you want?
I like that.
Hey?
Good conversation.
That was, you know, it doesn't really, I'm not sure it helps anybody, but I mean, I hope they take the advice of just finding out what's important and looking for that, because it's not going to be there with everybody. And, you know.
Yeah. No, that's true. So I want to talk a little bit about, for all of our viewers, they might have realized that we're a little behind schedule at the moment because we missed a week.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really clamoring to know what is happening because that episode got missed.
Yes. I was away. I went to a conference with the city on the Safety of Our Cities conference, it was called. And I got to meet a lot of people, learn some things to bring back to our city. I guess we're jumping out of real estate into city stuff now. But yeah, so it was very interesting. I was in Mississauga, and you and I had kept in touch, but just couldn't seem to nail down a time to get this done here. So
and I was already getting sick back then, that last week.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. So now we know why.
Right. No, that's true. And today, since we're on city topics, I went to the new public art unveiling at Simplot Central Park, which is
and I missed
located on because you got the Rona. Located on the corner of 3rd Street Northwest and 5th Avenue. So you will see as you drive up a 28-foot steel sculpture that has been erected there, and it's quite the sight to see. Its sheer size is what catches you in the beginning, but it has a lot of finer detail to it, like the engraving in it, or I guess the carve outs in it. They do various things as the sun shines through throughout various parts of the day. And one of them being when the sun is directly behind it, it casts the shadow of an eagle's skull onto the ground. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. So
I've been looking forward to that going in because we've known about it for a while and we knew it was coming up. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. Rather, and it's up at Simplot Central Park right now.
Yeah, go check it out at various times of the day.
At various times of the day, public art is something that really enhances a community, and you need to look around Portage to find, or you don't have to look very hard, rather, to find a lot of it. Whether it's murals on the back sides of buildings, or there's that canoe that is now a planter.
Right.
If it's still there, if they haven't,
I believe it's either being moved to the west side or a new one is being put on the west side as well. I was told the other day. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's all over our city and surrounding area. Yeah. What else we got coming up?
What else? Starting Sunday, October the 6th is Fire Prevention Week in Portage. So just a reminder to everyone to change batteries in your smoke alarm, your smoke detectors, your carbon monoxide detectors. Some people do it with the change of the time, the daylight savings time every year, but just a gentle reminder there.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you, and I hope I don't get sued. Do not put Amazon batteries in your carbon monoxide detectors. They do not last at all inside of a smoke detector. And I can't explain why. Maybe I just got a bad batch, but I ordered brand new batteries for all of my smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. And I replaced all of them. And within 4 days,
wow,
they all went off like in the middle of the night. And if you're in a modern home, they're all connected. So if one goes
Right.
off, they all go. And then you're trying to figure out where it's coming from.
I don't have that problem because I go to the local hardware store, locally owned. Just kidding.
Well, so do I now.
Just kidding.
Yeah, now I do.
Yeah. No, but if you're talking remote control, you're talking kids' toys, something like that, and you want to use the cheap batteries, go ahead. You might find out pretty quickly that they don't work very well. When it comes to something like smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector, don't cheap out on those batteries, especially because you only have to change them twice a year.
The next thing you know, you're away doing something for the weekend, and you're getting a FaceTime call from your kid at 2:00 in the morning. When I say kid, I mean teenager.
Yeah.
Saying, what do I do?
Well, and that's like, I had a carbon monoxide leak in my house a few years back, and I had one carbon monoxide detector, and we were sitting having breakfast, and I could hear this beeping, but I didn't know where it was coming from because it was very, very faint. And so finally I figured out that it was coming from my basement from the carbon monoxide detector. So I got myself and my kids out of the house, and I called the fire department, and they came down. And as soon as they walked up to the door with their meter, they turned around, went back to their truck, and put on respirators because the carbon monoxide concentration was bad enough to be fatal. So I learned a valuable lesson that day because
Does the beeping mean something?
The beeping means something, and while wide awake, I could barely hear it because of the location of the one carbon monoxide detector I have, right? Had I been sleeping, I don't know if things would have gone differently, right? So,
well, there was a tragedy in town a number of years ago that I won't go into, but yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
And so, now I've invested, and it is an investment because you're investing in your future, in your family's lives, right? I invested in some updated ones that link together. So again, like you said, when one goes off, they all go off because that was enough to put a scare into me.
Yeah. Well, on a lighter note, we're on episode number 8.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could think about was when I was putting the thumbnail together was number 8, and there's a house there. Deadly number 8. You know what I think about when I think of deadly number 8?
What's that?
Well, one of my favorite pastimes as a child when I was getting up to no good was playing Knock Knock Ginger.
Oh, yeah.
There was a house. It was
So
number 8 Campbell Place. Number 8 Campbell Place. And we called it Deadly Number 8. Because if you ever did it to them, they would hunt you for the rest of the night until they caught you. So that was the one you did at the end of the night, right before you went home and went to bed.
That's right.
Otherwise, you could have done it, and an hour later you get grabbed by the arm by some guy from that house.
We'll have to do an episode of all the shitty things we did as kids.
Oh my God. That's a series. That's not an episode.
That is a series.
Yeah.
Because I've got a whole catalog of those things.
So
things I look back at and say, if I ever caught my kids doing that, I'd kill them.
Well, in hindsight, you think, that's pretty shitty. But whatever. I'm sitting here, and I've been a part of a neighborhood chat where I live, and somebody had posted some kids sneaking up to their door and ringing the doorbell and running away like they're being super sneaky, not realizing they're on camera the whole time.
Right.
So that's what you face nowadays. But yeah, these kids just kind of crept up there and rang the doorbell and then took off running. And I was dying laughing at these kids. And I think I made a comment about something about it being funny in the neighborhood chat, and it wasn't well received. But, like, that used to be my favorite thing to do as a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What else you got? I just got a notification that I got 5% battery left here. I wasn't overly prepared. So
No, it doesn't sound like you're very prepared at all.
No.
And there's no such thing as chargers or anything like that in your office, apparently. But
well, there is, but they just don't quite reach where the tab is.
Oh, it would show the rest of the room.
Well, yeah, and it would. It would show my lower midsection, which,
Yeah, let's
a
not
whole
joke.
summer of camping hasn't been friendly to me. So
Yeah. And I haven't been in the gym in a week, so
yeah, I hear you.
But it's good. Episode number 8 is in the books, and we'll try to be back next week. It has been a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Lots going
busy
on.
is good.
Yeah. And I let my ozonator run 24 hours straight in the house, and it took care of the smell. No problem.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Shout out to ozonators.
Woo. All right, buddy.
Okay, man. We'll talk to you next time.